It's all coming together right here now. It's all coming.
If anybody is here recording me and trying to catch me doing something against Common Core, I'll be protected. Per the branding guidelines of Common Core State Standards and Common Core State Standards Initiative, the following notice is hereby issued as applicable to this presentation. Copyright 2010 National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and Council of Chief State School Officers, all rights reserved. That applies to all Common Core references. So topics for tonight, we've got quite a few. I'm going to go through pretty quickly. I will talk a little bit about my education experience just so that you can get an idea of why I'm here, why I'm passionate about the topic. A lot of people don't know about my experience in education because I don't like to talk about myself. So this will be new for most of the people in the room. We're going to do a Common Core overview. We're going to have some fun with the Common Core curriculum in math, history, and English. Then we'll talk about the United Nations direct connections to Jefferson County and Common Core. The built environment is key. It has a lot to do with how they're impacting our children. We'll do a propaganda speed round. We'll talk about legal remedies because there are remedies right now that exist that are rapid. I call it rapid justice. It's all legal and lawful actions that we can take to stop the basic insanity that's going on in the school systems. And then we're going to end with some positive, because as you probably feel right now, there's a lot of anxiety surrounding this Common Core and all the problems in the education system. So we're going to end with on a positive note. So my education experience, I taught at Colorado State University in courses that were credit courses applied to graduation standards. I taught at Front Range Community College. It's now known as or it used to be known as Larimer County Vocational Technical School. I taught at a public charter school, a private so-called liberal school, a private so-called conservative school. I did own my own reading tutoring business, and I was the owner of a national dance and gymnastics franchise. I owned my own dance business that was geared toward adults, and the biggest thing that makes me part of the education system is that I am a mom. So different types, we've covered the different types of education systems that I've been involved in. My class sizes range from 1 in my reading tutoring business to 150 in my Colorado State University classes. So I had 150 students per class. Those were really excellent ways to learn how to control classes because I had all ranges at the university level. And you would think that graduate students would be the easiest to teach. They're actually some of the most difficult because they needed the credits to graduate to finish their schooling, and so they made it quite interesting. We're going to start with definitions. This is actually a quote from Ayn Rand, and it's critical for us to know what we're talking about. We're all on the same page so that we don't have any misconceptions about the terms that we're using. And the reason this is important, I'll just read it. Let me remind you that the purpose of a definition is to distinguish the things subsumed under a single concept from all other things in existence. And therefore, their defining characteristic must always be that essential characteristic which distinguishes them from everything else. So if you have a word that has a literal meaning, we can't apply any other meanings to it or we're all confused. So define educate. Quickly, who knows what the word educate means? See how interesting this is? Because we assume that everybody knows that we all think educate means the same thing. But if you can't quickly put a definition to it literally, then we might have 50 different definitions of the word in this room. Now we already have a problem when it means to educate our children.
Teach.
Educate. To develop by fostering to varying degrees of growth or expansion of knowledge, wisdom, desirable qualities of mind or character, physical health, or general competence, especially by a course of formal study or instruction. It pretty much covers it, right? That gets us all on the same page. Education is an interesting word. It means a conditioning, strengthening or disciplining, especially of the mind or faculties. The word education appears 220 times in the document known as Agenda 21. The Agenda 21 is at 350 pages, so that means on almost every page, Agenda 21 is talking about how to educate. These words, educate, teach, teaching, teachers, instruct, Instructional, instructions, guide, guidance, guides, and guidelines appear 113 additional times. That's a lot of education in Agenda 21. Chapter 36 of Agenda 21 says, education, raising of public awareness, and training are linked to virtually all areas in Agenda 21, and even more closely to the ones on meeting basic needs, capacity building, data and information, we've heard about that already, science, and the role of major groups. So remember the role of major groups as we go through. So we got to start with a critical distinction. Common Core is vastly different from core knowledge. This is the core knowledge sequence, not Common Core. You can go online and print the core knowledge sequence. And if you're a parent or grandparent, I recommend you do this. You can do it for free. This is the most fabulous resource that you can have as a human being if you're concerned about education. So core knowledge was, I know about it because I was passionate when my child was younger. It's a sequential curriculum, basically, that covers in-depth topics. And they build on each other as you go through the years. So these books are preschool through 6th grade. You can get them online. You can find them for $5 a piece, and they're actually fun reading. If you're out of school and you're done with all of that, just pick one up and you can learn a lot about things that we missed, that we have gaps in, or it's a good review. Core Knowledge was founded by Professor Hirsch. He's been around the education system for decades. It's a highly specific curriculum. Now what's Common Core? It's not a curriculum, right? We'll go over the difference in a moment. So core knowledge is founded on cultural literacy, the idea that reading comprehension requires not just formal decoding skills, but also wide-ranging knowledge. They build on this fabulous base. So if you can't read a contract, you're in trouble. If you can't read the bus schedule, you're in trouble. So reading is a major part of core knowledge. Common Core is not a curriculum. This is the most confusing thing. And I think that Common Core chose to use the word core in it because it's going to confuse people with core knowledge. Common Core is state standards. There's a huge difference between a curriculum and standards. So why did Common Core avoid producing a curriculum and merely list these as standards? Why didn't Common Core produce a national curriculum? If they were worried about the nation's children learning the same things and being on the same page academically, why did they not make a curriculum? Any ideas? Yes?
They're not interested in those things.
Oh, that's really good. They're not even interested in having a curriculum that's worthy. But we also have constitutionality issues. What would the Constitution think about a national curriculum?
It's not constitutional.
It's unconstitutional on its face. You cannot have a national curriculum. Plus, how would we write a national curriculum? Can you imagine what that would take? 10 years of consensus building among teachers groups and textbooks. I mean, it's just simply not possible. So we're going to have a little fun with Common Core. Let's start with definitions. The definition of reasonable means not absurd, ridiculous, extreme, having the faculty of reason, being in agreement with right thinking and right judgment. Consensus means it's a collective opinion. Hard science includes the scientific method, controlled variables, objective measurements. A soft science is areas of study where the scientific method is difficult to apply. Variables are difficult or impossible to control without altering the results. Soft sciences are subjective.
Stacy, are the lights where you want these lights?
Are you having trouble seeing the slides?
I wonder if it is a problem.
Can you see the slides all right?
Yeah.
It might just be your angle. So is math a hard science? Hard science? Math should be a hard science, right? Why is math referred to as a universal language? Do we have any mathematicians in here? Yes, Clyde?
Can't be fudged.
It can't be fudged, that's good. So it's a hard science, you can't really change 1 plus 1, right? Equals 2, maybe. Are answers to math problems reasonable and consensus-based? Are they right or wrong? Here we go. So find the sum. Use front-end estimation to check that each answer is reasonable. Remember our definition for reasonable.
I use my calculator.
He's wanting a calculator.
Okay, so
His answer is 680, so let's walk through this. First of all, do you know what front-end estimation is?
I don't. I've never heard the term.
Raise your hand if you know what front-end estimation is. This is 3rd grade Common Core math. Front-end estimation. Okay,
I've never heard the term.
this is gonna. That's why your answer is incorrect, sir. So let's walk through this. Stay here.
Okay.
Here's how you do it.
I'm so embarrassed.
No. Can you imagine how an 8-year-old feels? I mean, this is 8-year-old brains on this math, so don't feel bad at all. Front-end estimation has differing definitions. That's the first problem. Some mathematicians say that front-end estimation means that you take the first number, so you take the 3, you make the rest of the numbers 0, so 354 becomes 300, 291 becomes 200. So now we have 300 plus 200. It's 500, right?
Right.
The estimated sum is 500. The answer of...
500.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't.
No. I didn't even make this up. I have proof of where this came from. However, I'm not using the school names or the teacher names because I don't have any motivation to expose them because they're simply doing what they're told by the federal government. So the answer of 354 plus 291 equals?
645.
645. So the answer, 645, is reasonable. Is 645 reasonable? No. What is it?
Correct.
The answer is correct.
It's correct.
It's correct.
All right, so here's how they do it. First of all, if you're estimating, are you going to say 300 plus 200 on your paycheck? Or are you going to round up? So, what they do is you make the 354 into 300, the 291 into 200, that gives 500. The estimated sum is 500. That's not even correct. It's not even close. And then they say the answer 645 is reasonable. Not that it's correct. All right, in less than 4 years, Common Core has transformed mathematics into a soft science. Can you conceive of what this is doing? If you're a 3rd grader and you are trying to figure out a problem like that, because you're 8, your brain is still that pliable, it is going to completely rewire your brain. That's a problem. 8th grade English. Formal English, who knows the difference between formal and informal English? Yes? Excellent. We have one man. Formal English is used most often when you do not know a person or are meeting them for the first time. You pronounce words more carefully and don't use as many contractions. You may want to know formal English to read a book, write a letter, resume, or invitation. Informal English is used in everyday conversations and in personal writing, such as letters, emails, or texts. Sentences tend to be simpler and shorter. Examples may include, hey, what's up? Howdy. Holla? Cool and awesome. This is 8th grade English. All right, let's collaborate on this next 3rd grade math problem. We're all going to work on this together. You ready? Juanita wants to give bags of stickers to her friends. Don't yell out the answer. She wants to give the same number of stickers to each friend. She's not sure if she needs 4 bags or 6 bags of stickers. How many stickers could she buy? I can't hear you. How many stickers could she buy so there are no stickers left over?
How many friends does she have?
Okay, somebody said, how many friends does she have?
How many stickers in a bag?
How many stickers in a bag? What else is wrong?
How many friends she has?
How many friends? How many stickers could she buy so there are no stickers left over? How much money does she have? How much are the stickers? Is there any way we can possibly know the answer to this?
No.
How do you feel if you're 8 and you're trying to figure out Juanita's dilemma? But if you have a reasonable answer, it's acceptable. Reasonable. I don't know what's reasonable in this case. All right, fifth grade math problem. What's wrong with this problem? Bobby is helping buy meats for grilling for the school picnic. He bought 10 pounds of sausage, 100 pounds of hamburgers, 1,000 pounds of hot dogs, and 100 pounds of chicken. Ready for the question? Which of the items he bought cost the most? What? We have an English problem to begin with. This is not really a math problem. You can't even understand what they're asking. Let me read the question. Which of the items he bought cost the most?
Per pound or dollar-wise?
Right, per pound, per dollar, per unit, per what?
Total.
Total? And why do we need 1,000 pounds of hot dogs?
Can you bring hot dogs into schools anymore?
I don't even think you're allowed to have hot dogs in school. All right, so Scholastic Common Core Civics. Lesson number 1, the Constitution in today's America. United States Constitution Fact Sheet number 2. This worksheet will help students understand the role the Constitution plays in shaping and protecting its citizens' choice to live in a free society that serves the common good. Raise your hand if you know what's wrong with that. Mr. Core Knowledge, what's the problem?
A free society isn't about serving the common good.
Yes, exactly right. Clyde?
The common good is a fudge word or anything you want to define.
Okay, exactly. So the problem is, first of all, does the Constitution play a role in shaping?
Protect individual rights.
Does it shape and protect us? Or is it what?
It's the rules of the government.
It's the law. It doesn't play a role in shaping. It is the law. But the biggest problem is that the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution are exactly the opposite of serving the common good. It is serving what? Individual rights. Exactly the opposite. Elementary Common Core Social Studies. This priority is that active citizenship in the 21st century, this is one of their priorities for social studies. It's not that extreme of a priority, but watch how they measure it. 7 out of 11 of the progress indicators mean this. With prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in a text. With prompting and support, with prompting and support, with prompting and support, with guidance from an adult. What about thinking on your own? What about being in 7th grade and doing this work on your own? Why is every measurement having to do with prompting and support? All right, how did Common Core get to Colorado? This is a quick review. In 1993, we had House Bill 93-1313. That's what started our standards-based education in Colorado. In 2008, they added the college and career ready standards. That included dance, drama, theater arts, math, reading, writing, communicating, science, social studies, visual arts, and world languages. So in 2008, there was a pretty big change. In 2009, the Council of Chief State School Officers and National Governors Association started the initiative for Common Core. And in 2010, these standards were released. Now we're going to talk about a little bit more personal. Who is, raise your hand if you know this, if I go through this. Who is P21? This is all Jefferson County. C21L, Pearson Foundation, and what are they doing here? Does anybody know about those organizations? So follow the money. This is how it all started. P21 is Partnership for 21st Century Skills, and they were talking about earlier how we're no longer worried so much about learning, but we're worried about being workforce ready. So C21L is the Council on 21st Learning, is the nonprofit professional development affiliate of the Partnership for 21st Century Skills. So that's the professional development side of P21. The Pearson Foundation, we'll talk about Pearson a little bit more, is the nonprofit arm of the Pearson educational publishing giant. Pearson is a massive education publisher. They're in partnership, Pearson is in partnership with P21, and they're in partnership with UNESCO. Pearson is the world's leading learning company, providing educational materials and services and business information through the Financial Times Group. This is the education publishing giant. What do they have to do with the Financial Times? So the New York Times, on December 12th of last year, wrote an article called Educational Publishers Charity Accused of Seeking Profits. They will pay millions. This is what happened. The Pearson Foundation will pay $7.7 billion to settle accusations that it repeatedly broke New York state law by assisting in for-profit ventures. So the Pearson Foundation is a nonprofit organization. The inquiry by the Attorney General focused on Pearson's attempt to develop a suite of products around the Common Core. Around 2010, Pearson began financing an effort through its foundation to develop courses based on the Common Core. So what are they trying to do? Profit off of their relationship, even though it's a nonprofit. The Attorney General's report that said that Pearson had hoped to use its charity to win endorsements and donations from a prominent foundation. That prominent foundation was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So UNESCO, it's the United Nations, you all know what UNESCO is, it's been around for decades. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and I intentionally spelled organization the way they spell it. Because it is a foreign organization. They are a specialized agency of the United Nations. They started in 1946. Here's the interesting thing. UNESCO Associated Schools Network is known as ASPNet. They started in 1953. There are 6,000 educational institutions committed, that's in the United States, committed to promoting the ideals of UNESCO. Here's the scary part. All projects are to have a multiplier effect. This means the integration of successful results attained by the associated schools into the mainstream of educational systems and the diffusion of those materials and innovations developed within the ASP network for the benefit of all. So what does that mean they're doing? They're taking all of that and infusing school districts like Jefferson County. Even though Jefferson County is not a member of the network, everyone who is a member in Colorado is infusing that into this district. So this is kind of an interesting way to look at it. Common Core is in the middle. We have United Nations Agenda 21, UNESCO, Pearson, the education publishing giant, Pearson Foundation, C21L, and P21 are all in Jefferson County. They're all working together on this Common Core. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of power also. So the current status of Common Core state standards, this is just from July 15, 2014 from U.S. News and World Report. Indiana, South Carolina, and Oklahoma have withdrawn from the Common Core state standards. Oklahoma governor signed a bill in June because the federal overreach had tainted Common Core. Missouri governor signed a bill in July that allows teachers and parents to revise the standards. So things aren't going so well. Louisiana governor, he's in a battle right now over jurisdiction and authority, and that's always entertaining for me to hear about a governor somebody at that level talking about jurisdiction and authority. He thinks he, as the governor, has the authority to nix Common Core. And the Education Association doesn't agree with him, so they're battling it out. The Iowa governor is withdrawing from the testing portion of Common Core because they understand what that means to the standards and how they're implementing those. And New Jersey is creating a task force to study it. So we have a lot of states that were some of the first states that participated, they're withdrawing. For the past 4 years, teachers have invested so much time and so much of our resources in learning how to teach and test to Common Core, and now it's looking like there's going to be a mass exodus. But quality teachers and parents knew in 2010 that this was a problem, and they couldn't get it stopped. So what's the big idea behind Common Core? Why? Don't you sit here and ask why? Why did we do this on a national basis? What was the motivation? Who thought this would be a good idea? Yes.
Marxists.
Marxists thought it would be a good idea? Yes, sir.
The book publishers.
Book publishers.
Recently out of college, and they changed the textbooks like every year. And when I was a student government, we actually protested against that, but they were changing. So I think with this Common Core idea, since they don't have a set curriculum, it gives them the leeway that they can use to come up with new, like you say, the changing the definitions.
Yeah, it's a brilliant observation, actually. It all has to do with textbooks and money. And the publishing giants who already have been charged $7.7 million for their conflicts of interest and their illegal actions. Yes, sir.
What you really got going on is that you have a few people who have decided how the rest of the populations on the planet should be thinking. And you're infusing into these kids' value system on the down low. The power of an idea is that you can't see it, feel, touch, smell, it's beyond your human senses. And when it penetrates into your brain, that's your hard drive in between the 2 ears, the idea gets locked in. And once the idea gets locked in, then you act on the idea, and now you have a behavior modification process where you have folks thinking that they're thinking when they're only reacting to information that they receive without any question.
Wasn't that beautiful? Yes. I hope you were able to hear it. That was absolutely beautiful. What a summary. And the thing that mostly that Common Core wants to avoid is people like that man thinking and applying it. They don't want you to think anymore. One more and then we'll move on.
Another supporter is Bill Gates.
Yes, that Bill Gates was doing the dirty work with Pearson, so yes, you're exactly right. We're going to move on now. All right, so the built environment has a lot to do with social engineering and getting this Common Core mentality and mindset forward. So the built environment includes buildings, obviously, we're in one. It has a lot of windows. You can actually see out the windows if it was light. I mean, feel what it's like to be in here right now. It's pretty comfortable. The lighting is nice. It's not that horrible white light that blinds you and gives you a migraine headache. So think about the built environment. So in the upcoming photos, I want you to name the photos as I flash them on the screen. Name if you think it's an elementary school, high school, police department, or prison. Just yell it out as we go. Ready?
Prison.
Prison. Prison.
Police
Seriously?
station.
What was that?
Police station.
Police station?
Police station.
Prison? It's tricky, isn't it?
High school.
High school?
College.
What was that?
College.
College? Prison? What's that? Police station? Are you ready for the right answers? Because there are right answers here. Let me find them. All right, that is an elementary school. You all said prison. This is a prison. This is actually a prison. Looks just like the elementary school. And the people who said police station are saying that because I've actually been there, probably with me. Police station. That's a high school, even though it kind of looks like it could be a police station with the overhead bridge there. That's an elementary. And somebody said this was a college. That's the police station. That's an elementary school. Looks like the outside yard of a prison. That fence is actually 8 feet high. And when I went to elementary school, and I did go to public school, and I got a good education because that was a long time ago, we didn't have fences around our school. I mean, it was tempting at times to leave, but I didn't because I had these morals and ethics that came with me. But I understand now why they have 8-foot fences. This is a high school, and this is the front of the high school in Fort Collins, and they have this huge tower with a platform. And as we were taking photos last weekend, it feels like it's a sniper's nest. We can't figure out what the purpose is. I'm sure it's not a sniper's nest. This is a prison. Prison. Do you feel how they all feel the same? You can't really tell them apart? All right, so we're going to talk about an attorney, John Whitehead. Who knows about the Rutherford Institute? So Attorney Whitehead has a fabulous new book called A Government of Wolves, The Emerging American Police State. His area of expertise as an attorney is constitutional law, civil liberties, and human rights. Fabulous guy. So chapter 24, I'm going to read this because it's valuable. Public school reform is not justified in the dehumanizing language of national security, which increasingly legitimizes the transformation of schools into adjuncts of the surveillance and police state. Students are increasingly subjected to disciplinary apparatuses which limit their capacity for critical thinking, mold them into consumers, test them into submission, strip them of any sense of social responsibility, and convince large numbers of poor minority students that they are better off under the jurisdiction of the criminal justice system than by being valued members of the public schools. And that's basically what the man in the back just summarized for us. It gives me chills to think about what's happening publicly. So statistics, we'll go through this quickly. This is from his book as well. 14-year-old in Florida is suspended for hugging. 9-year-old in North Carolina is suspended for sexual harassment for telling a friend he thought the teacher was cute. All right, if you're male and when you were 8 or 9, isn't that when you kind of started to notice your teacher? And you kind of talk to your friends on the playground. That's natural. That's human behavior that's not a problem. But now they're making it a crime. 6-year-old in Georgia accused of sexual assault for playing tag on a playground. And these are all original source references that I have. I don't go off a hearsay or websites. I go straight to the source. 6-year-old in California was arrested and charged with battery for kicking. I think I kicked when I was 6. When you're 6, you kick. Until you get kicked and then you stop kicking. A 12-year-old was arrested for doodling on a desk. Who doodled on their desk when they were in high school or junior high? Come on. Who doodled? I didn't actually. Student expelled for speaking on his cell phone to his mother who was deployed in Iraq. He hadn't spoken to her for a month. That horrifies me. 4 high school students were arrested for a food fight. They were facing 90 days in jail and a $500 fine. A high school student in Indiana expelled for sending profane tweets after school hours. So you wonder how they know that. That's when the entire surveillance and the tracking was exposed in Indiana, because the schools were actually monitoring these private phones and tweets before, after, and during school. In Texas, here we go. 300,000 school children received misdemeanor tickets from police officials in 2010. 300,000? A 12-year-old in Texas had police called because she sprayed perfume on herself. And in 2009-2010 school year in New Mexico, more than 90,000 children entered the criminal justice system. He finishes by saying, school districts are increasingly teaming up with law enforcement to create what some are calling the schoolhouse to jailhouse track by imposing a double dose of punishment. You get expelled and then you get into the system. And especially for males, especially for young black males, once you're in the system, you don't get out. It's a lifelong sentence. That offends me. Propaganda, let's talk about propaganda. Dissemination of ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of helping or injuring an institution, a cause, or a person. It's interesting that it's in the definition that the purpose is to injure. What's the most effective emotion used in propaganda? Fear. Fear and its perpetuation by the government is the greatest weapon against freedom, and propaganda is the most effective tool for keeping the populace in check. Propaganda and expertise of politicians is in reality a fiction, but it's an effective fiction. It is spooky to stand up here because of what we're going to talk about and what we're doing, because the people who are involved in Common Core are way beyond anything I was ever involved with before. Way beyond. And so these brave people who are taking a stand to be on the school board and to start a new charter school based on core knowledge, they're doing it for the future, and I'm proud to know them. Conditioning and programming, we all know this. General propaganda, we're bombarded daily. But let's talk about school propaganda. It comes in curriculum, textbooks, teacher organizations, student clubs, recess rules, think about that one, RFID chips, building designs, surveillance cameras, on-site law enforcement officials. That's all part of the propaganda. It's all based on fear. It's all to make people feel like they're afraid to even doodle on the desk. So for the propaganda speed round, we're going to go through these photos fast again, but for each photograph, ask yourself, is this the government's business? How much is it costing the taxpayer? Is there scientifically proven evidence to support the propaganda? Is this morally and ethically consistent with reasonable people? Who's being hurt by it? Who's benefiting from it? Is there a privately held creative solution that is being stifled by the government in each of these photos? So when I put the photo up, I want you to actually say out loud what you see on the screen. Ready? Oh, sorry, next one. The purpose of propaganda speed round is to illustrate the constant bombardment of fear. We're able to cope with this mental intrusion much better than children, but children are hostages in the schools. They can't escape it. And because they don't have that, I'm talking about public schools that are using this Common Core and all of the propaganda. They don't have anybody there on a daily basis or on a per case basis to help them sort out what is being thrown at them. That's pretty spooky. So, walk. Ready? Say it with me. Don't drive. So we have walk, don't drive, bike. You're losing 2,300 gallons. Fix leaks. Transit instead. Men, chocolate, and coffee are all better rich. Is that offensive? That's offensive. It's not true either. Warren, get involved. This is Lakewood. Yikes, isn't that scary? This is in your civic center. No access to city buildings from the parking lot. Use the elevator. What? You park in the city lot and you can't get in the building from the parking lot? You have to go to the elevator? I stood and looked at this sign for quite some time figuring out how to get in the city building. It's not that I can't understand signs and follow directions. This is also offensive. Don't be that guy. Don't water 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. See how they have stereotyped this man? He's wearing a tank top. He's got the old, I mean, he looks like he's straight out of the middle 80s high school, right? Does that bother you, or are we so numb to it? I mean, how would you feel if you looked like that guy? And I know a lot of people who do look like that guy. Get moving. This is Lakewood's obesity challenge. So you can actually participate in a program in Lakewood, and the more you exercise, if you exercise the most in Colorado, then you get recognition. Isn't that nice? This is inside your Civic Center. It's called Reclamation, Artists Modifying Debris. Do you think they're talking about Common Core? All right, here's a nice one. This is Lakewood again. Join nextdoor.com and discover the modern way to be neighborly. What is the modern way to be neighborly? All online. Yep. Don't ever look at your neighbors. Don't talk to them. Don't go out and have a barbecue with them. just text them and email them, because you got to go online to even learn how to be a modern neighbor. So this is, we are building an inclusive community. When you see that sign, what's the first thing you think of? Inclusive. First thing you think of is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. That's the inclusive social term. So Lakewood's building one, right? So I wanted to know exactly what does that mean. It's the National League of Cities, by the way, who's promoting this. We'll go into what that means in a moment. So this is in Jefferson County, climate change. It's worse than you think. Yikes. I can't even drive through the mountains in Jefferson County without being bombarded by that. And this, I had to put this in. I was like, are you serious? They're still advertising this? This is the Current magazine. Inspired, passionate, and original. Taste it all. Smoke camels. I saw that in the 60s. Not that I was old enough then, but I'm just saying. This is Highway 287. It's a state highway. We have a 12-person bicycle that has a beer tap on it. Riding down the middle of a state highway, and we have 2 lanes of traffic backed up behind it. Why are we doing this? Belmar, downtown Lakewood. I tried to find downtown Lakewood, honestly. I don't think there is one. I think it's Belmar now. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Okay. Live steps away from everything you need. Live Belmar Apartments. And is Belmar Lakewood, or is Lakewood Belmar? What is Belmar? Is it a whole new city now? I'm seriously asking.
It's a shopping area.
It's just downtown Lakewood called Belmar.
Yeah, not technically.
And residential, commercial,
See?
urban infill.
You live here and you don't even really know. So this is downtown Lakewood, also known as Belmar. This is the Stack and Pack Live Work Play. Car to go parking. You've seen this in Belmar. If you use one of these cars where you just get in it and drive, you use somebody else's car, it's all paid for by taxpayer dollars, you don't have to pay for city meters. Did you know that? Is that fair to people who drive?
No.
That's discrimination, actually. All right, deep breath for the final section. And by the way, that flower and that bee was taken at Clyde's house, that photo. Thanks, Clyde. He's got the coolest garden.
Thank you.
Very nice. Propaganda that deserves a bit more time. Windmills. Millions of dollars in fines to Duke Energy for killing birds and bats. Millions of dollars. So what they do? The lobbyists for Duke got legislation passed so that it's legal for them to kill these birds and bats. That means they can kill bald eagles. Windmills don't discriminate, they kill everything. There's something wrong with that when you consider the net loss for the windmills anyway, when you're talking about energy and how much it costs and how much land it takes. Windmills are a problem.
Windmills are also making people sick.
Yes, you're right, they are making people sick, and it's not just because of the site pollution.
Right.
All right, this is also in Belmar. Can you see, have you all seen this? That covers the sidewalk. It's a big metal flower kind of contraption. It's right, let's see, where is that? I think it's by the theater, yes. So that's art in public places. It's part of Agenda 21. So some artists got paid to do this using taxpayer dollars, and it's called a living wage, so that even if you're a really lousy artist, you get paid something that will support you, even though you're not very good at your trade or your skill. Last, in Evergreen, we talked about what a carbon dioxide equivalent is, a CO2e. Is that actually an element? CO2e? Okay, well, we found a sign. This is in Fort Collins. It's called the Green Brick Road Project. And it says a savings of $5,000 and 50 megatons of CO2e. There is no such thing as a CO2e, but at least we're measuring it on the Green Brick Road. All right, so what is an inclusive city? It has nothing to do with what you would think of inclusive means as far as race, sexual orientation, gender, all of that. You have a committee called the Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community. There are 30 members that serve on 3 committees. It's civic awareness, neighborhoods, and sustainability. That's your inclusive community committee.
Are they appointed or what?
You volunteer, and if you have expertise in, say, sustainability or expertise in a neighborhood, then you get chosen, and if you're connected to people, you have a pretty good shot at getting on the committee. So Lakewood 2025, moving forward together, this is the bad news. Lakewood is right now developing its first sustainability plan. First ever sustainability plan. You're about 20 years behind Fort Collins, but you're not going to take long to catch up because you have Fort Collins as a sister city to model after. And right now you're updating your comprehensive plan, so they're going to weave all of the sustainability issues into your comprehension plan. So December 2014 through February of 2015 is when you're going to have all these adopted by your city council. If you want to get engaged and try to stop the sustainability plan from destroying businesses and individual rights, you still have time. We proved it in Cheyenne. It's not too late. All right, name these 2 objects. Somebody name the object on the left. On the right? Bus bench, trash can, bus bench. Remember definitions? Those are no longer what most people recognize as a trash can and a bus bench. The reason I found that out is on the back of that bus bench, actually Law and I were going around taking photos for presentations, and he said that he noticed all these new bus benches with this really strange design where they, you sit on it one time, and if you weigh more than 20 pounds, it's going to crack the supports, so the design is flawed. But on the back of it, it says property of COA, which is interesting because they're bus benches, right? So I wanted to know what COA is. It's called Creative Outdoor Advertising. So why are they installing all of these design-impaired benches that are no longer bus benches? Why are they doing this? Why are they specifically putting in bus benches that won't last for more than a year? It's happening all over Jefferson County. You'll start to watch, you'll notice bus benches now when you drive around, it'll horrify you.
No advertising?
There is advertising on the front of some of these. But they're installing them because this is a private business who has ties to ICLEI and Agenda 21. The city of Wheat Ridge specifically wanted to have a contract with this company. They're a foreign organization because they met the sustainability standards and the green goals. So they gave this contract to a foreign organization, and they no longer call them bus benches. They're called street furniture. Street furniture. And now there's a whole, the whole organization of sustainability experts and businesses no longer call this a bus bench or a park bench. It's street furniture.
Show them the heritage receptacle.
We're coming up to that. Don't call it a bus bench or you might be ticketed. The object on the left is called a heritage receptacle. You can't even make this stuff up. Sustainability experts and companies have renamed a trash can a heritage receptacle. Tell me why. Heritage receptacle.
Our life depends on
We throw away our heritage. Our life
our life. Something about our life that
depends on the trash can.
Yeah.
There's DNA on it?
Has DNA. That's a good one. It has DNA on the trash can. That is a heritage receptacle.
Saves our culture, shows our culture.
Shows our culture. Do you find this distorted? It's a trash can for trash, but they don't want you to think about throwing trash away anymore because, by the way, Lakewood has a zero waste initiative. You all know about that? Zero waste. Even if you are very careful about the amount of trash you produce and how much you recycle, is it possible to live without making any trash? Is it possible? I can think of a number of things that I want in a trash can and nowhere else. Yes.
I think one of the things I've studied a little is the ultimate goal of this is for us humans to use no energy.
Right, which means what? It won't take long before we die.
Yes.
All right. So there are remedies, there are solutions that exist right now. This is the Larimer County Justice Center. Courthouses are buildings, remember the built environment, that are specifically in existence for redress of grievances. You know, constitutional stuff, and I have been called a constitutionalist, and I claim that proudly. I am a constitutionalist because it is the supreme law of the land. It has been used against me viciously, and I will stand here until the day I die and say I'm a constitutionalist, because the Constitution protects every right that we have naturally. So, the Colorado Constitution, the United States Constitution, the Colorado Revised Statutes are already in place for quick remedies, rapid justice. This is outside the courthouse. It says, justice is just us. And I think, who put that there? Because it's not happening in the buildings. It's not happening in the courthouse. So do they mean the magistrates and judges inside? That's just the justice? Yes.
For them.
Just for them.
It's anti-God, justice comes from God.
It's anti-God? That's an interesting perspective. All right, let's say that you have an issue with your school board. What are you going to do? What's the first thing you do?
Call Arnie Duncan.
Call Arnie Duncan. All right, that's on the record. First you call Arnie, and then what? If he doesn't do the right thing, file a complaint, right? What happens to the complaint? Where does the complaint go?
In the heritage receptacle.
In the heritage receptacle. What happens with the complaint is it usually goes directly to the people that you're complaining about. So they get to decide on their own problem. And then what happens? Nothing, you're stopped. And that process, that complaint process, can take a year, 2 years. I mean, sometimes it takes 5 years. Can you report a crime? If something is going wrong in the school board that is criminal in nature, do you report it to the police? Do you think about that? Or do you just think, there's nothing we can do? They're government employees. How about a civil lawsuit? Can you sue somebody on the school board? Can you sue a school board member? See how confusing this is? The social norm is, no, you don't sue a school board member. They work for the government. They're protected. They're immune. Everybody's immune who works for the government, right? That's what they want you to believe. But the truth is, our Colorado Revised Statutes actually have a nice title called Title 24, where it tells us exactly how to sue school board members, water board members, and I'm not giving legal advice here, I'm just explaining what exists. You can sue any government agent for any intentional wrong. That's Title 24. But you will not hear most attorneys tell you that, because then they will be attacking their own system. So they don't want you to know. Title 24. You can Google it, actually. What's a tort? Who knows what a tort is? Who said that? Somebody said opposite of a tart. A tort is a civil wrong. A tort is any civil wrong that is actionable. So if you have a school board member who is intentionally committing a civil wrong, you can sue them civilly as an individual. Isn't that fabulous? You won't hear attorneys tell you that because they have to protect the system. If they don't protect the system, then they lose their job and they have a family to support. These are just new ways of thinking. There is no statute or law that allows anyone, including those in official capacities, elected, appointed, hired, volunteer, etc., to violate statutes or laws. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Because everyone is equal before the law. But do you see how we feel like we can't sue a judge or we can't sue a water board member? Do you see, we don't feel like we can because the mindset is opposite of that. Yes, sir.
They actually had a case in Detroit where a judge was seeing the woman of somebody who was before his court for child support, and the guy actually filed suit, but the judge was immune. And that was in Detroit. I don't know if that was just that state or specific.
Right. So what probably happened is that the person who sued had an attorney to do it, usually, and the attorney will not follow through on the law. They have to do that. I know it sounds unbelievable, but over the past few years, I've seen it countless times with my own eyes, and that has led me to research the law. I'm not an attorney, but I have spent so much time in the Ralph Carr Supreme Court Library that I know what I'm saying is true. I go to the original source. You can sue attorneys, magistrates, and judges. You can sue school board members, teachers, all of these officials who you think are immune. You can sue them if they're acting intentionally. That's the key. Is what they're doing intentional, and do they know they're doing it? That's all you need for a civil lawsuit, yes.
Can we sue the city managers?
Absolutely. If they're doing something intentionally wrong and they know they're doing it wrong, there's a process to lay that out so you can prove they know they're doing it and that it's wrong. The supreme law of the land is designed to protect our rights. The Constitution doesn't give us rights. We have them because we're here on the planet.
Right.
And a lot of times people think, well, you know, it just gives us certain rights. No, we have all the rights. They're ours. When those rights are violated, the system is designed. It's already there for those wrongs to be righted through lawsuits. I don't appreciate or enjoy saying that we need to start suing people individually, but that's rapid justice. They do it to us all the time. They are taking actions against us all the time that is violent, and they're using force to do it. If we sue them individually, we stop the madness pretty quickly. So other solutions, public charter school, and it's funny, I didn't know Mr. Schuler was going to be here, but I say carefully, there is a new core knowledge classical education school coming to Jefferson County. Isn't that awesome? The core knowledge program is the most fabulous curriculum available. It's not perfect, but it is solid. You can private school, homeschool, and there are co-op schools as well. Core knowledge sequence is available at no cost. Get it just to review. Read through it. It's really a lot of fun. And it's a way, if you can't do these other options, it's a way to ensure that your children and grandchildren don't have gaps in their education. Do it with them in the summers and weekends at night. It's a lot of fun. Common Core is a national disaster. We know that. It didn't take very much time for us to realize. And the remedy for Common Core, even though this is a global problem and there are billions of dollars being infused into the United States through foreign organizations to implement Common Core, the remedy is local. It's right here. The remedy can start right here in Jefferson County. So this is from one of my favorite people. His name is Brian. He writes Story People, and it says, "This holds a promise to all the children of the world, which is how you can tell it's a real dream of America and not one of those dreams of fear and death that glitter so brightly on television." I will take questions, but I want to say one more thing. I have some free DVDs up here. If you were in Evergreen, it's the same DVD. It has my son's story on it. It also has Benjamin David Gilmour's story on it. You're welcome to take one. They are free. And it will explain what happens when you take a chance, like our school board member and our charter school man, what happens to people who take a chance and tell the truth and do it publicly and fight for our future. So thank you all for being here.